Un, dos, tres, cuatro.
Anodized for color and durability to create our first aluminium.
This box just showed up at my door. Last night, it felt exciting, like one click and happiness was on the way. But today, honestly, I don't know. It doesn't seem as exciting as last night. And that keep happening to me. I buy, I wait, and then I open, and eventually I forget. Recently, I have noticed that when I have some free time, I would went on shopping apps to just browse for fun, looking at things that might be my next buy. Eventually, I started to notice some of the things that I got before from being a must-have item in my cart to a practically useless item in my house. I didn't think too much of it. Then I started to sort some of the stuff out, sell them, or give them away to people who actually value them. But then it got me thinking, why did I buy all of those things in the first place? Let me introduce you to my most recent regrettable purchase. I got this bike secondhand. I fixed the bike, new brake, new suspension, both front and back. I bought this last year. I upgraded. Once it was done, I just stopped riding it. Yesterday was the first time in the recent 6 months that I have ridden them. I mean, really, before I got them, I was thinking to myself how much fun that I'm going to have every day riding the to and from work. What happened was I didn't know what they were exactly before I bought them. I really want the thing that I imagined, but most of the time, the actual product doesn't fit my imagination. Is everyone buying more and more stuff, or just me? These days, buying something online takes less effort than making a cup of coffee. It could be 9:30 at night right now, and if I tap buy, the item will show up at my door by next morning. I mean, the delivery is sure fast in China, but my bank account hates it. And my brain love it. The moment I hit pay, I get this quick excitement, like a little pick-me-up. But the second the package arrives, I'm already chasing the next one. The bike really got me thinking about my spending habits. It shook my views on buying. As I was wondering, more questions came up for things like, where are those cheap goods coming from? Why does shopping feel so good? Then one question led to another, and they start to pile up. Why is it so hard to stop shopping? And does more stuff really means happiness? I started to doing some research. More paper that I read, the clearer the picture I got. I started to understand the process and how we're in this mess. This became one of the giant rabbit holes that I'd done.
The 19th century, the century of the Industrial Revolution, was for England a century.
This is for me, clicking buy has never been easier. The global production boom could go back to the Industrial Revolution, which massively accelerated this trend. From textile mills to Ford's assembly line drove down the cost, which is why the world today can deliver so much stuff at such a low price. The enormous change in manufacturing had reshaped our market completely. Instead of lacking goods, now we have more than we could ever need. For one product, we could find a dozen brands. The competition amongst them drove down the price even more. When there's no room to cut down on price, then they improve the quality of the product to stay competitive. This is capitalism at its core, where market selects the best product and then the consumer is the big winner of the day. And yeah, this is a case for us. Okay, let's back it up a little bit. We're able to make more, so the price is cheaper. Okay, it makes sense. But what is the reason why that is so hard to stop buying? Is it because we have more, so we can buy more since they're already there, so why don't we, might as well? I feel like that doesn't answer the question for me. I wanted to see if our minds has anything to do with this. It was to my surprise that it does. Not because there is some to do with it, but rather how much it has to do with it. As a 2022 paper has pointed out, our evolved body and mind react to modern life as if we were in an ancestral environment that existed thousands of years ago. This rapid growth has been around for a couple hundred years. During this time, our living environment has changed so quickly that our subconscious instinct was not yet adapted. A couple of hundred years, that could sound like a long time for our body to change and adapt, but it is only a tiny portion of the time that humans have been around. The fundamental structure of modern human brain has not changed significantly in the last 4,000 years, though its size has slightly decreased over the few thousand years, starting around the time complex society and agricultural shift. Our survival drive remains largely the same. Even though our quality of life has transformed completely, our subconscious is lost in the current environment. Humans have psychological mechanisms that respond positively to sight, smell, and taste of food that are rich in sugar and fat. These mechanisms exist because an attraction to such calorie-dense foods helped our ancestors survive in an environment that was often scarce in calorie. For most of our existence, this trait was helpful. I mean, it's life and death. It is so much easier to resist some vegetable over a piece of cake.
In most of the human history, the former is way easier to come by.
But nowadays, I could fill my fridge with cakes that can last me months. I could eat nothing but cake all day. But if I had done that, that would have been a pretty bad diet. Those survival instincts kept us closely linked to our ancestor. As a 2013 paper observed that although our ancestors never shopped in a mall, choices made by modern consumers are nevertheless strongly connected to the same motivation that drove our ancestors' choice about everyday decisions.
Basically, our brains remain those Stone Age ancestors, wired for survival in a scarce world, and definitely not for abundance 21st century marketplace. Our ancestors need to gather as much as possible as a necessity for them to survive. For us now, it's just called a groceries run. To get anything that we might need, we have more volume, more choice, and more diversity. But if we let our primitive instinct to govern our decision making, our desire would be endless. Back when we used to live in a cave, it did help us for generations, but now it doesn't serve us all that well. When we have access to the marketplace like today, it is really hard to resist the temptation to not get everything that we want.
When we purchase a product, it activates the nucleus accumbens, a dopamine-rich wanting center. Basically, the more we buy, the better we feel. The whole purchase process is an orchestrated emotional neurological experience. Choosing what to buy could restore a sense of control when life feels chaotic. Burnout from work is increasing ever so quickly. Shopping could offer us some safe space to relax and take control.
Work-life balance will also be a topic. If you're interested, subscribe to stay tuned. All right, let's get back to it.
This 2008 study shows that just by anticipating or seeing a desired product can activate our rewarding system. In other words, even before we purchase, we get a rush. Attractive packaging or name brand could light up our reward center as well. This is not an accident. This is by design. That's why sometimes spending feels so much more than just a transaction. It feels deeply satisfying. When we saw a price tag, our brain will react to it as well, usually in a form of higher insular activity. The brain's pain signal. We all like the feeling when we get stuff, but we also hate the feeling of pain. This sensation usually slows us down and make us think about the purchase rationally before we make a decision. In a way, it helps us to buy less. Interestingly, in one classic study, viewing the logo of a highly prized brand triggers a robust activation and suppresses the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, implying that beloved brands directly engage reward reward pathways and bypass the rational control. The result of that is when we see a more prestige brand, it usually predicts a higher willingness to buy, even when the prices were steeper. If any given product were associated with emotions, the product could instantly become more valuable. They're not selling product anymore. They're selling the vibe. At the end of the day, the goods are as valuable as one would pay for them, but if they could trigger our emotional response, our value system could crumble rapidly, and we're less likely to think about a purchase in a rational way, but rather a emotional way. This might result not just more compulsive buy, so more likely to willingly to pay more for something that seemed to have a certain symbol or representing something. For quite a while, shopping for me served as a emotional care. The very act of choosing and acquiring often boosts my mood and sense of control. A 2014 study showed that making purchase decision, even in a hypothetical shopping test, measurably reduced people lingering sadness because the choice restored a feeling of personal agency.
Okay, personal agency. We will come back to that.
In practice, retail therapy distracts ourselves from stress or negative feeling. Buying could give us an immediate dopamine hit. I had noticed when I'm feeling down, buying things could help me not to think about the current situation. The things I got, sometimes just really random things I don't even need.
So as I thought more on this, all my questions led to this one final question. Can money buy happiness? My conclusion so far is yes and no.
Shopping could momentarily boost our mood by increasing perceived control and delivering a quick reward. This is why small splurge sometimes can feel like emotional pick-me-up, but in the end, it doesn't last for long. People quickly return to a baseline of happiness after positive or negative change. We have a strong regulator in our system that limits the effect that fluctuation could cause. This helps us emotionally balance. For example, if once a goal is achieved, our satisfaction levels off, so we stay motivated to tackle new challenges and basic survival needs. Once again, really useful stuff. Back in the days when we're living in the wilderness, say if we got one meal and then we never worry about anything else anymore, we're going to die off. I mean, take the scope back to us now. Each new purchase satisfies briefly, but our brain adapts. But we need more or bigger purchase to feel the same lift. This is why money alone doesn't raise long-term happiness.
In the beginning, my goal was to get to know about how this behavior exists. But now, after all this research, I started to understand the core drive behind those purchases. And I don't want to buy some random things so they can sit in my house anymore. So I decided to look into some solutions that can actually help me in this situation. There were a lot of suggestions, from general ones like pre-committing budget to lessen exposure. I think some of those are too general. Along the way, I actually found some that is really helpful for me throughout this journey. This method suggests that if I want to buy some non-essential things, I will put the item into my cart. Then I will wait a set amount of time. For example, it could be 3 months or 3 weeks. If after that set amount of time passed and I still really want it, I will seriously consider that again. If eventually I deem that useful or a good investment, I will actually get that product. This method can filter out a lot of the stuff that we don't actually need. Sort of like a cool down period. Another one, this technique that I found really helpful is what I call what then. So let's say that I really wanted a new phone. I was started to imagine in my head that I already got that phone. I'm laying on the couch scrolling. What then? What would be different? Would I even be happier with the new phone? What would some of the apps that we use on a daily basis would feel different on the new phone? Then I would start to realize the new phone pretty much would just do the same thing that my old phone does with a minor tweak. For me, the idea of wanting the new phone would decrease drastically. Just by thinking a little bit deeper on the purchase rationally, one could either slow the purchase down or just not purchase them altogether. Because sometimes it is so much easier to play up importance of a new product, but if we think about it a little bit deeper, do we actually need that product? Do we want that product? For in this case, the phone, how much would it make a difference? And the price we're paying for the new phone, is that worth that tiny little bit of difference? More often than not, when I think about it, I can stop myself playing up the importance of that specific product in my head by using this method. This one, I think it helps me the most. I would call this a 3-step process instead of like a quick fix method. The first step of the process is what I call awareness. I mean, looking back now, before I knew all this existed, I was basically in the middle of the ocean with no compass, without anything to guide me or act as a reference. Along the way, I delegated a lot of my decision making to my natural instinct and common sense. It works to a certain degree, but it's not optimal. And most certainly, it's not mindful, it's not conscious. Once I knew all these mechanisms existed, I started to see the reason why I naturally wanted to do or buy certain things. It is quite useful. The first step is basically we need to understand why and how our brain works the way it does. Once we are aware this is the case, and then we can build on top of this to move on in our process. The second step is what I call acceptance. Once we're able to be aware of the situation, our next step is to accept this is the case, and we can build a strategy around that. If we just try to outmuscle this urge, just like a strict diet plan, more often than not it fails because it takes out the human factor out of the equation. Not only would it take extra mental energy to focus on the plan, and we are working against our body. So it doesn't matter how much we try, it is always a struggle just to break even, and sometimes even done more harm than good. And that is counterproductive. That is not our goal. We need to understand our body, and we need to work with our body to accept there is only so much we can do in this situation. Then we are ready to move on to the next stage of the process. The third step is what I call training. In the end, through purchase, we're just trying to find that feeling that we wanted to feel. Trying to get this thing so we can enjoy that. When I was in college, I really wanted to get 2 PCs so my girlfriend and I could play games together. Since PCs weren't inexpensive, it took us a long time before we can actually afford 2 PCs. I realized a simple 500 pieces puzzle or baking together could achieve the same effect, maybe even more. Because my goal was to spend some time together. And through the 2 PC purchase, I saw ourselves spending time together and having so much fun playing some stupid game together. And the thought of wanting those 2 PCs has been my goal for so long. I start losing track what's my final goal. And somewhere along the line, the goal slowly changed to get 2 PCs. Eventually, when we got those 2 PCs, I don't feel that happiness that emerged from those 2 purchases, because the make-believe goal was to get 2 PCs, and those goals aren't fulfilling in and of themselves. It is just some make-believe that I had installed in my mind that I need those 2 PCs. And I kept telling myself, once we get those 2 PCs, we are going to have so much fun playing games together. But the final goal, the ultimate goal, is to spend some time together. But somewhere along the line, it became get 2 PCs. I have a tendency when I want a specific product, I oftentimes imagine what I would do with that product. I will have some imaginary user case that I will take this product to do X, Y, and Z and enjoy my life so much more. And it just paints a picture on top of the product, maybe even a functionality the product doesn't even have. So basically, I'm making a product, a desirable product, in my own brain just to make myself want it more. The reason why final step is training, because we are able to identify the drive and understood the drive. If we understand them enough, we can prepare ourselves in a way that is more conscious in terms of our purchasing. And recent studies find that emotional intelligence or positive value can curb materialistic attitude and compulsive purchasing. A control environment find that students who complete a training program report significantly lower level of materialism than a control group. Just like the PC story, my goal was to spend some more time, but in the end, it had became get those 2 PCs. It is easy to hyper-focus on the thing on the surface level that we forget about our final goal. Even though there's so many ways that we can achieve the same result, but somehow in my mind, there is only one way. I felt like I learned a lot from my past experience and trying to understand that I have a tendency to be like that. To have a conversation with yourself about the tendency that you might observe on yourself. It's difficult to think about all the stupid mistake that you did, but in the end, I thought about my stupid mistake and I felt like I paid a price for my mistake, and then I learned from it and that I actually got something out of it. But if I just let my mistake continuously happening, and then my mistake from before became obsolete and irrelevant. And then circle back to personal agency. If to restore personal agency, it's my ultimate goal, shopping is one of the ways that we can achieve that. I decided to start meditating, to give myself some space to be calm and relaxed and think about my decision, just to be more conscious about my action and my decision. It somehow better my focus, my clarity of my mind, as well as personal agency. Purpose of this video is like a mirror that kind of for myself, to understand, to examine my mistake from before and combining with some research that I can be more conscious about my decision. Thank you for watching my new series. It's called Life Reorganized. This is my attempt to take messy parts of my life and turn it into something more conscious, something more intentional. Instead of ignoring problems, I want to slow down and examine them and figure out what's really going on. Along the way of making this video, I had so much fun researching and dive into the topic and understand every single mechanism to a certain extent. Since these types of video are research heavy, so the update time of this series might be a little bit longer. Before I publish any video, I want to make sure I fully understand on whatever the topic might be, on whatever the subject might be, I want to be fully understood before I publish them. Once again, really thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.